If you've been dreaming of starting your own consulting gig without giving up that steady paycheck just yet, you are in the right place. Because today I am spilling the tea on how I built my consulting business while working a full-time job. Yes, you heard that right. Balancing both worlds and thriving. It's time to secure that bag and build the business of your dreams, my love. Ready to learn how I did it and how you can too? Well, let's dive in and make those dreams a reality. Let's get to work. First things first, let's talk about why I truly believe it's a great idea to start your consulting business while you are still working your full-time gig, your full-time 9 to 5. First, I did it for probably about 2.5 to 3 years. And I was ready to kind of take the leap well before I did. I had just gotten into this space of thinking of my business as a side gig. And that wasn't the greatest space to be in. I've talked about this before, because if you really truly want to fulfill that dream and pursue that freedom, then you've got to start out with the mentality that you are going to stay in your job for a set period of time and that you're going to maximize that learning opportunity in order to really truly take that time to build your business. And some of the reasons why I think when you get your mind right before it, just like I did, that I stayed while I was building the business, because I recognize that when you're starting a business, it can be a tumultuous time and you need time to really get going. So some key points why I think it's a good idea is, number one, the financial security. While you are working, you're maintaining a steady income while you're building your business, and you are going to have expenses when you are getting started. And if you're trying to not be employed while you're doing that, it's going to be really, really difficult. So I think that the financial stability and having that income is critical to being able to truly start without the unnecessary added stress, especially if you already have a family. And obviously, if you are a grown-up and you're adulting full-time and you've got expenses going on. But I want you to be aware of the fact that that financial stability is something that you also are going to have to make some sacrifices in, because contributing as an owner to your business during that time is going to be important. And I've done other videos about this as well. When I finally knew that I was going to take the leap, I set a deadline for myself. I gave myself about a year in the end to really say, you know what, a year from now, I need to be out there on my own. And I used that year of steady income to not only keep my bills going, but to also begin contributing financially to my business. And I went into my HR department and I got my direct deposit form and I began splitting up my direct deposit. So I had a portion going into my checking account that was paying the bills, at a portion obviously going into a savings account for those rainy days, as I knew that I was going to be building that business. And the third, I had a certain amount going in every paycheck into my business account. And those are considered owner's contributions, because I knew that I was going to have business expenses even as I was getting started. So that's a really big reason why I think it's a good idea to start your business while you're still employed, because it does keep you in a low risk perspective. You've still got your health insurance going, you've still got some money coming in, and it's critical to be able to truly get started without all the unnecessary stress, and also to be looking for investors and all of this other stuff. You can really focus on building if you choose to focus on building. The second reason why I think it's a good opportunity is because you need to use it as a learning opportunity, right? I knew when I set that deadline of 1 year that I needed to soak up everything that I needed to soak up in order to make sure that my business was running successfully. So I made sure that I was using the time to gain my valuable skill set, to recognize where my skills and my strengths and my weaknesses were. I also used my experience from my job that could ultimately be applied to my business. So oftentimes, I didn't like the way that things were being run where I was working. I didn't think that my manager's leadership was the greatest. And so I used all of those things that I didn't like to make sure that I wasn't going to be doing those same things in my business. My mindset, once I set that deadline, shifted. And even though I was still working my full-time job, job, I knew that it was a great opportunity for me to use the time to garner all that I needed to go out on my own. And one of my favorite phrases to myself was, you know what, I can do this on my own. This exact task that I'm doing right now, I could do this for myself. And I began to mentally shift into, I'm using this as an opportunity. As much as I might hate it and as much as I might crave jumping and taking that leap, I am using this opportunity right now to make sure that I am fully prepared, skill set wise, service delivery wise, packages wise, what I'm doing, strengths and weaknesses wise, to go out on my own. So that's the first thing that I want you to realize. It is a good idea as long as you are using that time to benefit ultimately your long-term entrepreneurial journey goals. The second thing that I did while I was still working my full-time job and that I recommend you do is that you use that time, once you set that deadline, to get your business set up and start generating leads and getting your first clients. Absolutely. I did. It was totally a side hustle, but it was also a great time for me to develop my business plan, to get my LLC set up, to make my business official, to begin to outline the goals of my business, to do my market research, to identify what they were, and to put all my critical strategies in place. This was a time for me to do my first 2 S's, right? You guys have heard me talk about the 4 S to freedom framework: structure, strategies, systems, and squads. Well, I used the time to create all the strategies that I needed in order to make sure that when I took that leap, I was going to be all set. And I was able to do that in the security of my full-time job. I also used the time to network, to begin to build my leads, to begin to build my brand, and to leverage my professional network that I had at the time working my full-time job to find potential clients and leads in the future. I began talking a little bit, getting to know folks, understanding their needs. It was a great way for me to get to know my ICA and to do some market research. And so every networking opportunity that I had at my full-time job, because of my full-time job, I used it to leverage what I was going to be doing when I finally took that leap. And I also used that time to create my online presence. Now, this can be tricky, and I've been doing coaching calls with you guys. I know that you're like, well, how do I keep my HR department from knowing that I'm out here like doing this side hustle thing and keeping it, separate? And one of the things that I always advise is that you make sure that you create your online presence, but that you build your business's online presence, right? You create your business pages, and you create your website, and you create your social media profiles. It can be tricky if you are still trying to use your personal stuff, which you may have friends at your current full-time job involved in, but get it established, right? Get your online presence established while you're still there. And it's going to be so helpful when you're ready to make the leap, so that you're not leaping without anything already set up and ready to go. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about, I go into a lot more depth in my Startup Roadmap Masterclass. If you haven't already accessed it, please make sure you do. You can check it out at the link below in the description, also in the comments, but you can check it out at CherylCPerez.com/Startup Masterclass. The link is right here. And while you are down there checking that out, it's going to walk you through step by step all the stuff you got to do in order to get the business set up. And it's actually a great roadmap for what you should be doing while you're using this last year at your full-time job. Make sure that you like and subscribe and share this video. It kind of keeps CPTV going and allows me to keep bringing you golden nuggets just like this. Now, the third thing that I recommend you do while you are working full-time and running this consulting business on the side is to use the time to validate your idea, your service idea, and your service and product and pricing strategy. When I was in my full-time job, I had my first handful of clients and I was ecstatic, but it was a great opportunity for me to test out what I thought I was going to ultimately be doing when I finally took the leap. And when I say it was a great time to test it out, that's exactly what I meant. I used the time to do my market research and to make sure that I knew where I fit into the market and who my target market was. And then I created my MVP, my minimum viable product. And that was the service that I thought I was going to ultimately be delivering. And it allowed me to kind of create a basic version and to test its viability, right? My first handful of clients, they were paying, but I was able to kind of see what was working and what wasn't bringing results. I was able to kind of streamline what the service package looks like, all while I was in the comfort of my own home and my full-time gig. But again, I had that focus and saying, all right, I want to make sure that in this next year that I get my first 5 clients. That was always my goal. 5 clients, because I'm a firm believer, and I've said this before, that if you do something 5 times, you will have a really good idea of what's working and what's not working. And so my first 5 clients, my initial service idea that I was delivering, I realized that I needed to package them. I also learned during that time frame that doing hourly consulting rates was not where it was at, okay? I also learned how to make sure that I did my actual process itself. And there were lots of different things that I was able to validate during that time frame. So use this time to start putting your service out there, the idea that you have, testing your pricing, but most importantly, validating it and getting that social proof that you're going to need when you take the leap. The fourth thing that I did, and I've already kind of mentioned this, was I used the time to really document and create the processes that made me successful. And I did this in 2 ways. Not only did I do it while I was kind of testing in like the previous step that I mentioned, my service, but I also started paying attention to what I was doing in my everyday job. See, my consulting business and yours is probably not that far off what you're already doing.
Say, hold up. Wait a minute, something ain't right.
You're going to be using your current skill set, your current strengths, kind of what you've been doing the last 10, 15, or 20 years to build a consulting business around. That's what's motivating you. And I started paying attention to how I did my job. And one of the biggest things that I did was I began to create SOPs around what I did. So if I was working my full-time job and I was delivering a consulting service or a skill-based intellectual property service to a client, I began paying attention to what I was doing. I didn't think of myself anymore as just doing it for my job or for my employer. I also realized, hey, you're doing this for yourself. So begin to create those SOPs. So I created detailed guides for my ultimate operations, how I was operating in my full-time job, but also how I would ultimately be operating in my business. I also paid close attention to how I onboarded clients and began to develop a seamless process, better than what I was even doing in my full-time job for my own business. And then I also kind of started paying attention to my workflow so that I could manage it well, because I realized, hey, you know what? I'm at my full-time job and there's a whole team of us doing this stuff. I'm going to be the only one as a solopreneur eventually doing this on my own. So I really began to pay attention to the whole workflow. Who else at my full-time job was doing different things? And could I do those things? And could I learn how they did those things? Or could I streamline my processes in order to be able to do those things? So use the time to begin to map out what you're going to be doing. It is so important and extremely helpful, and you will be absolutely stress-free when you finally make that leap. The other thing, number 5, that I had to really master while I was working full-time and managing my consulting business, and you guys will probably really feel me on this, is learning the art of time management and figuring out how to dedicate enough time to doing my business while I was working full time. And it was really a mindset shift, right? Because I was not opposed to working 40, 50, 60 hours for my employer at any given time. You know, I did. And so you've got to kind of wrap your mind around the fact that you've got to be committed to doing that same thing for yourself. Now, one thing that I did begin doing with my full-time employer was that I began setting boundaries for what I was going to do and how long I was going to do it, because I knew that I had to set aside at least 10 to 15 hours a week for my business. I did that in the evenings sometimes during the week. I was also a mom, so it was really difficult to juggle, but I did it. And I really did dedicate time on the weekends. Saturdays and Sundays were kind of my days to kind of get work done. And then I used one day each week to really work with clients. And I would do it before I started work. I would do it on my lunch hour, or sometimes I would do it in the evenings afterwards. And my clients knew that that's what it required, and so I did. And so you have to also do that time blocking that I did. Allocate specific hours each day, each week for your business tasks. Do not allow your business to take a backseat to your current employer's business. Do not spend all of your time building someone else's dream and not setting boundaries enough so that you can focus on building your dream. You also have to learn how to prioritize. I learned so much about time management during this time, how to prioritize my tasks, how to focus on high impact activities, and also how to make sure that I was balancing things well. It's because it was a true learning lesson, which was difficult for me in making sure that I was taking care of myself. I truly felt like starting my own business was self-care. was an aspect of self-care because I was building my future and my freedom. And so I treated it as that. And I began to learn how to truly balance that self-care, which I still have with me today. So finding a sustainable balance between your job, your business, and your personal life is going to be important. But you will learn so much about how to do it, because when you finally take that leap, you are going to need the art of time management. It's going to be critical to your success to build a six-figure business and a multi-six-figure business. So number 5 is absolutely critical. And I think it's an amazing golden tip on how you can run your business while you're doing your full-time job. And tip number 6 that I didn't do enough of, but that I totally recommend you do, is that you use this time for continuous learning and to get yourself a mentor or a coach. Okay? I am not lying. You will need to learn lots of different things when it comes to running a business. You have a skill set that you are really good at, but it doesn't mean that your skill set is being an entrepreneur or being a CEO or really understanding all that that means. And so you're going to have a huge learning curve. Use this time to tackle that learning curve. And to make this time go even faster, I recommend getting a mentor or a coach like yours truly, who will help you do the tasks. If you spend tons of time watching videos, taking online courses, trying to figure it out for yourself, you are going to be wasting a lot of time. And while you're working, you're going to have income coming in. You're going to have that money that I've already talked about going into your business account. And business expense includes a mentor or a coach. Invest in that, or you are going to take years and years to actually take that leap. So use this time to learn what you need to learn. Get the support that you need to get. Shorten the amount of stuff that you have to learn by getting yourself a mentor or a coach. Do your professional development, get that mentorship, do that networking, build and use this time for that. Do not waste it. Do not waste it. My love, I cannot stress it enough, because I didn't do it enough. And I spent a lot of time DIYing, and I could have shortened the 2 years that it took for me to be building the business into probably 1, and I would have experienced freedom a lot faster. And I can't even tell you, one of my biggest regrets about starting my own business was that I didn't do it sooner. And so you won't have that same regret if you follow step number 6. So let's recap how you can run your consulting business effectively while you're doing your full-time job. Number 1, it's a great idea, my love. Don't doubt it. Number 2, use the time to get your business set up, start gathering leads, and generating the first few clients so that you can test things out. Number 3, use that time to validate this idea and to make sure that you've refined your product and service strategy. And number 4, use that time to document your processes and your SOPs. And number 5, manage your time. Learn the art of time management and shore up those skills, because you're going to need it. And number 6, use the time to learn and get yourself a mentor or a coach. They're going to be so helpful in helping you meet that take the leap deadline. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a like or a subscribe. Check out that masterclass. And until next time, my loves, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Mwah!
You an entrepreneur, I got what you need.